Within the ripples of my prayer, my words seem to awaken a will of their own from the winds of my breaths, which come from the breath of God. Such that I weave a prayer to be guided to my soul's calling, to my soul's purpose, and here almost immediately present themselves the rippling reflections of the phonetic, linguistic breaths which give me my being. So that I am held within the reflection of the words themselves, whose traces I must follow as I breathe them into being, not knowing which direction they will take me. I thus walk upon the footsteps of my breaths, like the fool off the cliff. And here, while this may not be a cliff itself, it sure as heaven symbolizes and resembles it. And I feel the lightness. And I feel that as I walk off the cliff on the path of the holy fool, these subtle little clouds of spoken breath and prayer will hold each of my footsteps as I cross the bridge to the other side of the world. I do not know where this bridge leads. I do not know what the world looks like. What I know is my prayer, my faith in God, and the power of my will to weave them together into my becoming. And this mystery, this lack of knowing, this process of trust and absolute surrender, that even though I do not know where I go, how I get there, I trust and know that God not only has my best interest in mind, but promises gifts of abundance and healing and liberation beyond my wildest dreams, beyond what my mind can fathom. And as I speak the words, in spite of the heavy machinery that tries to distract me from my poetic path, I feel within my body into a macrocosmic dissolution of humanity's shadows, first within my vessel, and then equivalently within the world itself. I'm speaking of parasitic constructs. I'm speaking of networks of deceit. I'm speaking of imbalances. I'm speaking of evil. I'm speaking of war. I'm speaking of bloodshed. I'm speaking of all of these ways of behaving which are enslaving and imprisoning, and which are unacceptable in face of the divinity which melts all evil with love. I do not know exactly what it looks like, but I can feel it within my body and within my breaths and within my words and within my will, all of which are one with God. When I so choose to pour my faith into His will. And when I feel into this reality toward which I walk with faithful footsteps of the fool, I can then believe in that reality more fully, more deeply, more sincerely, and more fervently. And then I'm not only telling myself that the illusions, the parasites, the seemingly insurmountable demiurgic instantiations of being which try to keep consciousness and life and freedom entrapped within self-cyclical snares of falsity and delusion. I not only tell myself that these things are negligible, illusory, and fleeting, I begin to feel it within my body and within the reality which emanates from my body. I begin to exude this substance and substantiation and transubstantiation of reality within my field of being. I begin to feel the process of purification reaching from the innermost depths of my heart, most microcosmically contained, as though the birth of an imploding star, which then explodes and expands into the infinitude of the ever-rippling universe, from heart to body, to earth, to atmosphere, to galaxy, solar system, to galaxy, to universe beyond. I feel into the seamless interconnection and interconnection and interconnectedness between these self-same aspects of God's divine breath. And I am left to feel all of the ways in which I have willfully chosen throughout my life, whether through inheritances of ignorance or through willful choices of ignorance, all of the ways in which I have disconnected myself from that seamless, harmonious network of being, which is truth. Completely detached from any deceit, because deceit cannot exist within truth. So that I feel all of those parts of myself which have been deceived, or which have deceived themselves, or which have deceived others. And I feel those energetic imbalances within my body. within my mind, within the stories which I've told myself, within the reality which I see, not only in and of itself, but as a mirror which I've chosen to peer into with my own eyes and heart. I witness these things. And I'm given an opportunity to let them go. To let them go by way of will, by way of choice, by aligning my will with the eternal wisdom of God. The knowing and the feeling and the face and the faith of this certitude are invisible. But they are sensible in that I can sense them and I can follow the threads of their sensation and of their extrasensory transcendental nature into the apotheosis and angelic unfurling which they promise by way of feeling, by way of intuition, by way of instinct, by way of remembrance of something which always has been, always is, and always will be, but which for so long has gone forgotten. The process of purification, the process of renunciation of all deceit, of all shadows, of all calcifications and concretizations of those shadows and deceits and misalignments within our beings, is the process of shedding, which guides us to the remembrance of who we are in the eyes, in the heart, in the arms of God. So I'll follow these words. I'll follow their footsteps. And I will discover where they lead.